It's time for the Metroid Prime 3 Corruption review for the Wii. Corruption is the sequel to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes and takes place 6 months after the events in Echoes. The story in this game is pretty extravagant compared to the prequels, so I'll just tell you the bare minimal. Samus, along with other bounty hunters, are to eliminate a computer virus from a selection of supercomputers which are scattered throughout the galaxy. Eventually, due to events played out, Samus will acquire a new item which allows her to harness the energy of Phazon, which, if you're not in tune with the Metroid world, is a deadly radioactive substance which allows her to shoot super powerful Phazon projectiles at the expense of her health. So now with her new ability, you set out on your mission, investigating different areas of the galaxy. Once you start playing through Corruption, you will notice a few changes that the prequels lacked. One is that there is now voice acting. Yes, Echoes did have a bit of voice acting, but not really. In Corruption, everyone now has a voice. When you interact with someone, they'll usually speak to you as well as the game providing you with text at the bottom of the screen, and I like this change. Another difference is that Samus's ship is now used for something more than just saving your game and replenishing your ammo. Like I said before, you'll be exploring the galaxy, and so Samus's new-looking gunship will transport you there. You don't actually get to pilot the ship, which I found to be a bit disappointing, but it's no biggie. You can also sit in the ship and play with some of the functions, which is pretty cool. And last but certainly not least, your ship will play a part in helping you solve puzzles, which I thought was really cool because with the previous two Prime games, your ship stayed in one spot for virtually the whole game. I'm not including Hunter since I've never played it. So anyway, giving Samus's ship a higher role in this game was awesome. If you've only played one Metroid game, you'll most likely know what to expect from Corruption. Kind of like the way if you've only played one Zelda game, you basically know what to expect from them, excluding the horrors of the CDI Zelda games. Anyway, this game and all the other Metroid games I've played have a similar concept that's been used in many video games. Get through the level, collect items, battle bosses. However, with Metroid, this can be very difficult and frustrating. Why? Well, for one, Metroid games have virtually no linear design to them. You will constantly be going back and forth and sideways and upways and downways and slantways. Ugh, I sound like Willy Wonka. Anyway, you will be searching each area extensively, and if that isn't enough, you will have to do it by yourself. What I mean is, figuring out where to go next and having the story play out can be quite challenging because there really isn't anyone there to guide you. Yes, Samus does have her computer which will nudge you in the right direction occasionally, but the majority of the game has to be solved by you and you alone, and that's why it isn't a game for everyone. You have to have some serious patience if you want to succeed, especially in this particular Metroid game, because instead of just one area as a whole, like one planet with Metroid Prime 1 and 2, you now have several planets and areas to search through in the galaxy. The graphics have never looked better in a Metroid game than they are in Corruption. Prime 1 and 2 graphics were amazing as well, but Corruption looks even better. Now, if you've watched my Prime 1 and 2 reviews, you will know that I had an issue with the controls, and that was when an enemy wasn't directly in front of you, you would have to move around a bit to get a lock on, or by holding down the R button, you could move your cannon around, but your legs would lock in place and you couldn't move from that spot. However, since Corruption is on the Wii, the aiming and moving problem is fixed. You can now move freely with the joystick and the nunchuck while aiming your cannon with the Wiimote. Now, since this problem is fixed, you think the controls would be perfect, right? Well, almost. There will be times where you will have to pull a lever or push some buttons or whatever, and you will have to use the Wiimote to do this. The problem is minor, but it does exist. Sometimes the motion sensors will not read your movements correctly, and this happens frequently, which becomes frustrating. I am happy to say that this is the only flaw with the controls, as everything else worked great. As in previous Metroid games, you will have to scan a lot of items to win the game. Now, not everything needs to be scanned, but others are mandatory. Now, I like scanning as much as I can, so I thought of it as a side quest. You will even be awarded if you scan enough. Now, this next part is going to be hard to explain. This game is fantastic, no doubt. The graphics, controls, gameplay, everything is amazing. But I don't know what it is, but Corruption doesn't appeal to me like Prime 1 and 2 did. There's just something about it which I can't fully explain, but I feel like I had more fun with Prime 1 and 2. Now, I'm definitely not saying Corruption isn't fun, because it most certainly is. I still really like the game, but there's something about it. I'm gonna take a guess and say it's because of how much there is to explore. There is so much that it could become overwhelming because, like I said before, you have to figure out virtually everything by yourself. I wasn't joking when I said you have to have some serious patience to beat this game, because you really do. Otherwise, you will quit early on because of the lack of instant self-gratification you might get from other games. The boss fights were very fun in this game, and actually, I think most of them were more difficult than in the prequels, which I really enjoyed. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption is an amazing game if you have the patience for it. Sometimes great-looking graphics, spot-on controls, and amazing gameplay combined isn't enough for some people. If you love Prime 1 and 2, I'd have to say don't expect the exact same thing. Yes, the principles are the same, but since there is so much to explore, don't be surprised if you become overwhelmed once in a while, because I know I did. It's still a terrific game though, and I definitely recommend it to those of you who love Metroid like I do. This game gets a 4.5 out of 5 with the title of Epic.